In this video, what we're going to look at is selections and what exactly are selections and how they can help you. I've got a blank document here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection. And when I make a selection, I tell the computer I'm going to work in that particular area, or I'm going to do something with what I've selected. I've grabbed the Ellipse tool, and I can make it short and fat or narrow. If I hold the Shift button down, it makes a perfect circle. In this case, I want a perfect circle. I grab a yellow brush, and then you'll notice when I paint over this area, it will only paint within that circle. So you can protect certain areas, and you can also tell the computer this is the specific area I want to be working in. In this particular example, I have a very specific idea of what I want to do with this circle. I'm going to use a gradient tool, and with a gradient tool, I set 2 points at a minimum of a start point of color or grayscale and an end point. And I'm going to draw a gradient within this circle. I'm going to change it from a linear to a radial look. And with a simple drag, I can make it look like I've got a three-dimensional sphere now. That's all good, but I'm going to go a little bit further with this. I'm going to also give it a shadow and a table to sit on and a wall. You'll notice that I make layers for each element that I'm going to put into the piece because it makes it easier for editing. And just like with a sphere, I'm going to draw an ellipse here that is going to be used for the shadow. I'm also going to use a gradient tool. Now, the big takeaway is in the gradient tool because we won't really be using that. But the idea that the selections are being manipulated and changed, because throughout the rest of this unit, we'll be looking at selections, how to make them, how to modify them, how to change them, how to move them. Okay, so I've got the shadow on one layer, the sphere on another. I can move that around so that it sits a little bit better underneath the sphere. Remember to use the Move tool. Very often, students want to just use the tool that they've been on, but we have a specific Move tool at the top of the toolbar there. Now I use the Ellipse selection tool for the sphere and the shadow, and now I'm going to do the same thing with the rectangle tool. So the rectangular selection I'm going to draw out, and this will end up being the table. You'll notice that I've also renamed the layers. That helps me keep track of layers. When I've got a small work, it might not be that important, but when works get larger and you have lots and lots of layers, naming them can be particularly helpful. Oh, drew that the wrong way. The shadow looks like the light's coming from the wrong way, so I'll reverse that. There are different types of gradations. I use the radial one for the sphere and the shadow, but there are also other options that we can use. And the table is a little bit darker than I want it to be, so I'm going back in and changing what we call the stop points and giving it a better overall look, because the shadow should be darker than the table, not lighter. Okay, that works much better. On the left, there's that little radial part that I'm not happy with, but I'll show you what some of the other looks are. Okay, so that's linear, and then we have angled. That one definitely doesn't work for this particular piece. We have refracted, and that might be able to work. Might need to draw it out again, but we'll add another layer. And now we're going to put the wall in the back. We want it to recede in the background, so we're going to make it darker than the other areas. You'll notice that the layers have to be in the right position so that they conform with how they sit on top of each other. I draw out the rectangular selection. I change what we call the stops, where the dark begins and then where the dark ends. Okay, so I've set that very dark and then that kind of middle gray for the background. I draw that out. I don't like that line, so I'm going to redraw it. Okay, so the light looks like it's coming from left to right and casting a shadow on the sphere. Now, this was made specifically by using the selection tool. So keep that in mind as we move forward, how important the selection tools are.